Hello, Yuna. Thanks so much for being early. And hi, Gayu and Doyun. Everybody, thanks so much for being early. We're gonna get started at 7-ish, or maybe a little earlier if everyone is here. Welcome in. We're gonna get started in about 8 minutes, so you can go camera off until 7 or until 9 o'clock. We still have about 5 minutes until we're gonna get started. But I'm gonna check and see if everyone is here. People are coming in, so great job being early. Great to see you all. Hope you enjoy the little intro music. Hello, hello. Can you guys hear me? Yes. Okay, awesome. Great to be seeing all of your faces. If we could, yes, come on back, Jaeyoung. And we got about a minute until we really need to get started, but great job, everybody, being on time and being super early, even. Maybe that map we made yesterday maybe possibly helped us find our location better, right? So our awesome breakout group who made a map. Thank you for your map skills for getting us to class early today. I'm really excited to see all your faces. How are we doing? It's day 2. Feeling good, getting to know each other maybe a little bit, possibly. Maybe some emojis. I'm a big emoji fan in the Zoom class. So, would love to hear something that you guys maybe did yesterday on campus or with each other. So feel free to type it in the chat. I know a lot of the goals from yesterday were to learn English, and then the other goal was to make friends a lot of the time. So I hope you are making some friends in these days together in this pre-college boot camp. So let's go ahead and get started today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and share the slides. So, can you guys see my screen? You should see the slides. Yes, I see some nods. Very helpful when I see nods or thumbs up to know that I'm sharing the right thing with you all. So, let's go ahead and get started. But before we get started, I just want to again mention our wonderful recipe for class from yesterday, where we said lots of cups of participation and and just bringing that to class today because I will likely call on a few of you during class today, probably more than I did yesterday. Of course, I'll still take volunteers and wait for volunteers. But if I don't get any brave souls out there, then I will try to call on some of you who haven't talked as much. So I'm looking forward to hearing from everybody in class today. So just to start off with that, I'm excited. Let's go into it. So today we're going to be talking about cognitive biases, which you probably read a lot about in your pre-class reading, which is a lot of cognitive biases and all of them. But before we get into just cognitive biases, let's talk about our learning targets for the day. So our learning targets are problem solving, ethical decision making, and critical thinking. So I'll start off with a question. Can anyone think of how one of these learning targets will be used today during class? So, how will we use problem solving, ethical decision making, and critical thinking in this class about cognitive biases? Any ideas? Brave souls. Someone raise a hand. Oh, wait. Youngsei, go ahead.
I think the cognitive biases is made of very many experience that are made by long thought and long experience. So I think we can use a problem solving and ethical decision making and critical thinking to solve our bias to find out the right decision and right thought.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And let's go to Ihyun and ask how does using all of these to find the right answer to our problem, how do you think that might come into play with the cognitive biases that you read about? How do cognitive biases help you solve a problem?
I think they would help people do logical thinking.
Mm. So definitely solving a problem through logical thinking. That's definitely one way to do it. And cognitive biases can help us think in a different way, maybe, possibly. Does anyone want to help Ihyun out and talk a little bit about cognitive biases? How might a bias help us solve a problem? And that's okay. If there aren't any guesses, maybe we'll just talk about how cognitive biases are going to be used a little bit in class today. So maybe we're going to be thinking critically, right? Our third target about how cognitive biases are used and which ones we are talking about. And maybe we can think about whether it's ethical to use a bias and take that mental shortcut. And sometimes, if we want to take a shortcut when solving a problem, we can use a bias to help us solve that problem. But we're going to decide if that's an ethical thing to do when using the biases, if we can take that shortcut or not. So thanks, Ihyun and Myung-se, for coming out there and talking for us. Let's do a little recap before we move on. So in our previous lesson, you learned about algorithmic thinking, but algorithms are trained through meticulous reasoning and thinking from humans, who, as you might have learned from the readings, can make mistakes and judge things wrongly. So today, we're going to get into the mistakes that humans can make even in doing an algorithm, because when we take a mental shortcut, when we use that bias, we might make a mistake by doing that. And so we're going to get into that today. But before we do that, let's go to our glossary. So let's go to our glossary. Wow. So does anyone have any terms that they want to go over from this glossary that maybe haven't been added or that they already added? It looks like someone added a lot. Whoever added, thank you so much for putting in these great definitions. This is definitely going to be helpful. Yeah, deliverable. Your assignment, you're going to have multiple deliverables. And so someone has described the deliverables as a thing to be provided, especially as a product of a development process. And so you will be providing some things that are called a deliverable in your assignments. So that's great to know what that means. Wow, this is great. This conspiracy. This is good too. A secret plan made by two or more people to do something that is harmful or illegal. That's so fun. Okay, does anyone have any questions about the glossary or want to add anything to it? Any hands? Any hands? No? Okay, well, before we move on, I want to go ahead and get a definition of bias. So, can anyone help me out and tell me what is the definition of a bias? I'll take hands. Some hands. Youngse, we'll go to you, but I'll try to call on some other people as well during class. You're doing great, though. Thank you so much. If you want to tell us, you can. That's fine. Oh, but Yonghwan, go ahead.
Bias means that someone think something in the way that he want to see or he want to know.
Mm. Yeah, that's definitely a good start here. Someone thinks something in a way that he wants to see it. It's it's that kind of history that they have, right? They say, "Oh, I think he's from this place, so he must be good at this thing." And so I'm seeing it the way I want to see it. That's a great way of putting it. Anybody have any other ideas about what a bias might be other than this definition? We want to add to it? No? Okay, we think this is a good definition. I am going to add in, just in case you ever want to see it, I'm going to add in the textbook definition of a bias for you. And so bias let's go ahead and have someone read this definition for us. Can I have a volunteer to read this definition of a bias? You guys can see the definition, yeah? Ji-young, go ahead.
Uh, Bias is a natural inclination for or against an idea, object, group, or individual. It is often learned and is highly dependent on variables such as a person's so socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, educational background, gender expression, gender identity, and religion.
Great. Thanks for reading that out. So some of the harder words that you might have had trouble with were socioeconomic. It's difficult. It's a long word. And then variables as well. Those are the two. But thank you so much for reading that out. That was great. I love the bravery coming. I would love to see more of that as we go through. So everyone else, raise hands. Love to see more participation from our wonderful recipe of class. So if that's it for the glossary, we're going to go ahead and move on to our warm-up activity for the day. Go back here. So our warm-up activity here is going to be a few different questions, I believe. So can I have one student answer this question? When might biases influence the way we make decisions? You can feel free to answer it by raising your hand or by writing in the chat, okay? But I'll wait for someone to raise their hand and talk to us. Otherwise, I'll call on someone to take their best guess. Myungse, go ahead.
I think the bias influence the way we make decisions when we face emergency situation, uh, which require us to make decision more quickly.
Mm, definitely. Yeah, that's definitely one of the main ways that biases can impact the way we make decisions is when we need to make a quick decision, right? You're faced with an emergency, which maybe you know it or not, but you're going to be faced with an emergency today in this in a classroom activity, not in real life. At least I hope not in real life. So today in class, maybe you'll be faced with an emergency decision where you'll have to make some decisions with biases or not. Does anyone else have any idea when might biases influence the way we make decisions? Maybe um maybe Songhee? Any ideas?
I think bias influence the way we make decisions when we have to rationalize our decisions.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Maybe when we need to simplify things down and make our thoughts present to everyone else, and we think, oh, it'll be easier if I just shorten this and use one of the shortcuts. So yeah, that definitely could be a way as well. Okay, that's that first one. And then let's go ahead and read this slide, okay? So can I have a volunteer to read this slide for us? And remembering our goals of getting better at reading English and speaking English. It's a great opportunity. to read this out to the class. Don't be shy. It's okay. I'm here to help. Songhee, go ahead.
Imagine you're looking to buy a laptop. The first laptop you see in the store costs 1 million won.
Sorry,
Um,
1 million Korean won.
1 million Korean won. The next laptop you see is 800,000 Korean.
Won.
Sorry.
Sorry,
Won.
it's all good. It's I should have just put the Korean won symbol for you guys.
Based only in the price alone, you decide to get the second laptop because it's a good deal.
Nice. Thank you so much for reading this. Now, do you think there is a bias in this example? I'd love to get checks and X's on this. So if you go into the React feature of Zoom, you can put a check or an X, a yes or a no. And I'd love to see what we think. Is there a bias in this scenario? So I'd love to see answers from everybody before we move on. Yes or no, yes or no. Got a few checks. Nice. Got a few checks, got a few X's. Okay. So let's go to someone who thinks there is a bias. Uh, Sung Hwan. Sorry. I definitely got that wrong. Sung Hwan, why do you think there's a bias here?
It can affect us to think the first laptop is more expensive to buy because the second laptop is more more
Cheap?
cheap. Yes.
All good. Yes. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So just seeing that the laptop is cheap, maybe there's a bias there and seeing that, oh, it's just cheaper than the first one, but we don't know anything else about it. So maybe there's a bias there. Um, and you would be correct in assuming that. So there is a bias here, and I'd love to. Oh, no, don't show that. I'd love to hear and ask, what bias do you think it is? And I might have actually just showed you. So if anyone was looking at the slides, you got a good answer there. But can I get a volunteer of which bias do you think this one is? And Song Hwan did a great job of talking about it and saying that, oh, you see the price, and just because it's cheaper, you see there's might be a bias there. So you don't know anything else about it other than the price. Any ideas? Songmin, go ahead.
I think it's anchoring bias. So he focused on first laptop's price, so he buy a second laptop's price is more cheaper, so buy it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is correct. Very nice. A good guessing game there, right? So you're absolutely correct. And he definitely just focused on that first laptop. Oh, it's so expensive. This one is less expensive, so I'll take that one. Nice. So great job, Sungmin, on identifying that bias. And here we have the definition of the anchoring bias is when people rely too heavily on the first piece of information they encounter when making decisions. And in this case, it was the price of the first laptop. So one reason this might be a bias is we don't know anything else about the laptop. We're simplifying it down to just the price. Or maybe he was forced to make a quick decision and he's just seeing the price. But maybe the cheaper laptop is going to break in 1 week. It has bad reviews, and the 1 million laptop will last for the full year. But we don't know because they don't give us any of the information. So just so you know, in the reading that you guys did, you're not expected to memorize all the names of the biases, but I would definitely welcome um, finding your favorite bias and figuring out what it looks like in common language, just because it's always fun to be able to spot your favorite bias out there in the wild when you're reading a news article or really anything on the internet nowadays has some sort of bias possibly inside of it. So being able to spot your favorite ones is very fun. And we'll get more into the rest of the biases today in class, a few others. So everyone understand how the anchoring bias was present here? Yeah? Some nods, some nods. Thumbs up from Yungse. Some nods from Sunghee. Love that. Thanks so much. Some nods. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to our prep poll. This is a pretty easy one. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Oh, actually, I'll read it out first. And it says, which of the following sentences best explains the relationship between algorithmic thinking and cognitive biases? And then it has three options. So you'll be choosing which one of these options is the best relationship between algorithmic thinking, which was our last class, and cognitive biases, which is this class. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Hello, welcome back. And I will go ahead and bring up this prep poll. You guys see the prep poll, yes? Everybody zoomed into their cameras, so I think yes. And you'll have a few minutes to answer this. I'm going to go ahead and put up a little timer for you guys. For those who haven't answered, you've got about 3 minutes. It looks like people are finishing up anyways, so we might be able to end this poll nice and early and talk a little bit about it. Okay, looks like everyone is finished with the poll, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop the timer. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll. And you should be able to see the results, um, which is that all of you answered correctly. So I'm very proud. Good job on your first this prep poll quiz, this cute little pop quiz that we've given you. And would someone volunteer to tell me why they believe that this option is the correct option? Myung-se, I love your enthusiasm. I'm gonna go to someone else, if that's okay. So I'm gonna go to Jae-hyun, who also answered correctly, and ask him, why did you pick number two, or why is it correct?
I think I think bias can make algorithms to work more easily way and better way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Can we expand a little more on that? Anybody else want to give it a try? Maybe Sokyun? Why did you think number two is right?
뭐, I don't know.
That's okay. That's okay. You got it right. So you definitely have some thinking in there, which is good. You know that humans have biases. So I'm gonna actually come to Youngse, who did volunteer, and ask him why he thinks this is it as well. And then I might come to someone else after.
I think the cognitive bias can affect the algorithm thinking because human beings are affected by their experience and their thoughts. And their experience actually the made of their situation, which can make bias. So the bias are, but the bias can affect the algorithm by the human being decision or whatever.
Yeah, or whatever is a big statement, right? The many experiences that they had beforehand. Yes, so that's the whatever I think you're thinking of, which is good. But you're right. They definitely can be impacted by their past experiences. And so when we write an algorithm, we use our own assumptions, right? That was a big idea from last class was the assumptions we make when we're writing an algorithm can really impact the way someone might make a sandwich. If they assume that the top of the bread is that side of the bread, then we will not be able to communicate effectively and solve the problem that we have together. So great job. Let's go ahead and move on and delve into a specific bias today, confirmation bias. So I'm going to go back to my slides. Okay, can you guys see the slides? Should say preparation poll on here. Some nods, some nods, thumbs up. Okay, let's go to reducing biases. Does anyone know what confirmation bias is? Can I get a volunteer to tell me what confirmation bias is? Maybe Hee-yeon? What's confirmation bias, do you think?
I think its bias is that it is correct information because I think it is correct.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. It's taking in information and saying, "Oh, that's correct because I think it's correct," or accepting information that's the same as your existing knowledge and belief. So you say, "Oh, the sky is blue," and someone comes up to you and says, "The sky is blue." And like, "Yes, I think it is blue." So I'm going to accept that as information that I know already. And so a lot of the time when we seek out information, we use this bias to find information that is already going to tell us the truth about what we're seeking. So why would we want to reduce this bias or any bias? Anybody have any idea of why we would want to reduce this bias or another bias? Yonghwan, go ahead.
Because when biases come in the process of our thinking, then we can't see the opposite of our thinking. So we can't make our decisions correctly.
Yeah, biases can definitely impact the way we make decisions. And it can make us go to maybe a wrong decision or wrong information. And Jiyoung, I saw that you raised your hand as well. So I put it in chat to keep your hand up because I love going to multiple people to ask what their opinion is on it. So go ahead, tell us.
Um, Biases can restrict our thoughts, so I think it could be sometimes a negative part of us.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that restricting thought idea. It's when we're stuck in a bias of a specific type, we might not think outside of that box, right? And we'll be thinking outside of the box later in this course, of course. But if you're stuck in your bias, you might not be able to get out of that box. And so it'll restrict your thoughts and can lead to some wrong decisions, like Yongkwan said. So great. Love to see that from everybody. Thanks for participating in doing that. And let's go to this little scenario here. So can I have someone read this slide, starting with the John here? Another fun reading activity for whoever wants to take this on for me. Maybe Jiwon? Jiwon? Did I say your name right? I'm so sorry if I mispronounced Jiwon.
John is preparing for an upcoming math exam. He strongly believes that watching YouTube video is the best way to study because he has worked for him in the past. When his friend Tina suggests solving practice problem from the textbook, John, being a YouTube fan, finds yet another video that supports his idea that YouTube videos are the best way to learn. John failed his best exam.
Dun dun dun. John failed his math exam. Oh no. That's not good, right? Thank you, Ji Wong, for reading that for us. Um, let's go ahead and ask these questions to you all. So, Yoon Jae, what happened here?
Um, John strongly believes that YouTube is the only way, but that when his friend suggested another way, he rejected it.
Exactly.
and failed.
Yeah. Yeah, and failed. Just very sad for him. And so I would love to go to someone else, maybe Sokyun, and ask what could have gone better for John.
Solving practice problems from the textbook.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I agree. Solving practice problems from the textbook probably would have been a better idea here, right? I think you're right about that for sure. And Yuna, how would that have changed the outcome of John's exam?
He'll maybe have better grade.
Indeed, indeed, maybe John wouldn't have failed his exam um, from doing that. So let's make sure. And this example, right, is an example of confirmation bias by just seeing that he believes that YouTube is the best way. It's the only way. And even when someone suggests something outside of his view, that only YouTube will work for him is this confirmation bias coming into play. And this example, it ended up not being good for him. And so hopefully this helped you see ways that we can spot biases as they come into our life. So maybe you think, oh, I like to read this book for my math exam, and that's the only thing I'm going to do. And someone suggests a YouTube video instead. Maybe get out of your comfort zone, out of your little box, and try things a different way before putting it off as something that will never work for you. Okay, now we're going to work on a recipe of sorts. We're going to write a plan together on how to avoid confirmation bias in the future. So just talking about confirmation bias. And I'd love to hear from you all about ways that we might avoid confirmation bias. So how to avoid confirmation bias. Does anyone have any idea what we would do to avoid confirmation bias? Myung-se, start us off.
Accepting other people's opinion and advice. And it is
Accepting.
opposite for me.
Accepting others' opinions and advice. That's a good one. That's for sure a good one. Anybody else have some more ideas of ways to avoid confirmation bias? So maybe in the news, if we're looking up specific news events, what's one way we can avoid confirmation bias? Jiyoung, go ahead. Or Jiyoung,
Knowing that I could be wrong.
knowing that I could be wrong. That's such a great one. Knowing that you could be wrong and accepting that is such a good way to start avoiding confirmation bias and really getting outside of your box. Jae-young, you have any ideas about another way we can avoid confirmation bias?
When we fail, um, like John's story, uh, we cannot strict thinking like confirmation bias, and we think more softly.
Think more what? Sorry,
Soft
softly.
thinking.
Soft thinking, like allowing our mind to bend and change from not just only YouTube works, right? That's what you mean? Something different from not only YouTube works. Great. Does anyone else have any ideas about how we might avoid confirmation bias? Yonghwan, go ahead.
I think the next step is to try the new way of thinking that other people suggested.
Absolutely. That is a great one. Trying the new way of thinking that others suggest, getting outside of your box. And instead of just saying, oh, my box could be wrong, my box may be not right. That's a good way to start, right? My box might be wrong. Sorry, do you see the hearts that are next to my? I just did an emoji heart. That's so funny. Um, but getting out of your box and really thinking outside of that box. So trying the other things that people suggest is super important. So thanks, Yonghwan. And some other things that I might suggest as your professor would be to look for alternative information or way of doing things, which you guys definitely sort of mentioned in this idea of accepting others' opinions and advice. So, but that's something that they brought to you. And so I would encourage you to go out on your own and think differently and say, oh, I shouldn't just look at it. If no one ever brought the math problems to John, he would never have gone out of his way to go out of the YouTube. And so I would tell John, maybe instead of YouTube, you should try looking for alternative information yourself. And so getting himself out of that box without me having to tell him exactly what to do. And so I would encourage you all to do that. Is finding a news source that's different than your opinion, right? Something that's different from your box that you're already in. So this is great. This is a great little toolkit of how we might avoid confirmation bias. And yeah, that's great. Let me go ahead and back to our slides. Okay, so now we have a little scheduled eye rest break, which I like to take these during the class to just give you a small break from looking at screens. So I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to go ahead and take about 2 minutes, maybe three, where we can turn off our cameras and maybe talk to the person beside you and ask them where they're from or what their favorite drink or sport is. And I'll play some music while we do that. But don't wander off too far. Maybe just talk around you, and then I'll come back on the screen so that you guys can see me, and then we can get back to our work. Okay? So you can go ahead and turn your screens off. Not turn your turn your cameras off, not your screens. Okay, everybody, let's start coming back to our screens. So Kyun's already here. Nice. Okay, everybody, come on back. Come on back. I hope you enjoyed the music, maybe. Um, it's a fun Zoom world of music. None of it is popular music, I might say. So it's all fun music that they've given me to use on this platform, which is fun. So looks like everyone is back, ready. Maybe you learned something about your people around you, what their favorite drink is, what their favorite sport is, maybe where they're from. I think you have maybe been doing that on your first day, but I wanted to help you maybe get to know each other a little bit more. So let's go ahead and we're going to move into our breakouts now. So let's come up back to the slides so I can show you a little bit. You should be able to see the breakouts. There's the evacuation plan that's happening today. So we're going to split into breakout groups and devise an evacuation plan for the school. So more instructions will be in the breakouts, and you'll have about 10 to 15 minutes to complete this task. After the breakouts, we're going to discuss, we're going to, we're going to discuss how you evacuated your school and the choices that you made. I'm going to go ahead and drop the breakout groups into the chat now instead of going to your groups later, and we'll see how that works out this time. So at the top of your breakout group, you should be able to see your group name or group number. So group 1, 2, 3, or 4 when you go into groups. And this stuff, these groups, you should be able to see these groups. So give me 1 second while I paste these into the chat. That's groups 1 and 2, groups 3 and 4. And then we'll go ahead with our breakouts, okay? And just like yesterday, well, actually, maybe you didn't do this yesterday, but in breakouts, feel free to get up and go to a corner of the room with your breakout groups so that it's easier to discuss. But if I could have one person be camera on so that I know that if I come into the room and ask a question, that someone will be there to talk to me when I come in and try to make sure you guys are doing all right. So that would be great. But feel free to move about the room and get with your group so that it's easier for you guys to discuss and talk about the breakouts. So maybe Jimin will help you with that. But yeah, feel free to go into your breakout group rooms. They are open now. For our YouTube audience, they should be in their breakout rooms. And we'll see how they do that. I think they're going to group up inside of the classroom and then do their group work there. But otherwise, we've got a good 10, 15 minutes of break for our YouTube folks. looks like they're all doing fine. It was very interesting. They are definitely working together, which is nice, because most of them like either are not on the screen or have one headphone in. So they're definitely talking together. I can hear in their background a lot of talking about. So hopefully it's all good. they're making good progress. But we have a little bit of extra time, so I wanted to just go ahead and give them the extra time in this breakout because one group, maybe two of them, haven't finished writing their evacuation message. So I'd love to make sure that they write their message. So I went in and checked on them and made sure they had a little bit of time. Welcome back. Hello, hello. Thanks for coming back. We should be getting everyone else in right about now. Hello, hello. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. If you're just getting back, please feel free. Please turn those cameras on so I can see your smiling faces. Great to see everybody again. Hope you had fun in those breakouts, trying to decide how to let people know where they should evacuate and how. Now, the big thing here is that some of the groups had hours to evacuate, and the other group had a week to evacuate. So maybe that's not something you noticed. But in the first two sentences, it said floods are going to start in a few hours or floods are going to start in a week or two. So I would love to hear how one group or the other was able to decide on how you evacuated people. So I'd love to have a group present their breakout today. So you're going to explain. Let's go ahead. I'll bring up my slides for you so that you can see what we're going to do. So you're going to explain the scenario and its constraints, explain your approach and your solution, and describe the decision-making process, as well as maybe talk about the biases that you either used or tried to avoid when making these decisions. So I'd love to hear from one of our groups, if that's possible. Let's see. Whoops. This is group one. Can I get someone to present from group one about their evacuation plan? Let's see, who is a part? We had all of these nice people. Young Say. Go ahead. Oh, I can't hear you. I still cannot hear you. Can anyone else hear him? Over the mic? Maybe try plugging back in or... Oh, I still cannot hear him. Oh, try again. Huh, I cannot hear him. Is it me? Is it him? Technical issues, technical issues. Can someone else try talking to see if it's my problem or if maybe it's Myung-se's thing? Maybe. Sung-hee, can you say hi on the mic so I can see if it's a me problem or a his problem? Hi. Perfect. Okay, so I can hear you. I just cannot hear Myung-se. So maybe we can have someone else from group one present a little bit about their evacuation plan. Maybe Ga-yoon?
어,
So,
should I just read these sentences?
right. So here we are.
아,
Explain your scenario, explain your approach, and maybe talk about the biases that you try to avoid. So I'll come back
음,
here.
음,
So here's the
we
scenario.
explain,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Sorry.
we tried to avoid availability bias. So we wrote these sentences. Oh. Pay attention, please. There is a storm warning, so we should evacuate immediately. There are two routes, Route 1 and Route 2, but it is expected that Route 1 will be full of people and too congested. So all school staff and students must evacuate by using Route 2. We will use an emergency response team for people who need help. Please follow the steps advised.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Gayun, for reading that. So it looks like they had the one where they had to evacuate in an hour or less. So I'd love to ask another person from group 1, maybe Hayum, why you decided on using Route 2. What made you use Route 2 when it might be impacted by the flooding?
Because our group think Route 1 is crowded by people. Sorry. And using Route 1 is dangerous because people cannot evacuate because there is no time.
Yeah, there's not enough time, and if it's going to be congested, then maybe they won't be able to get out. That's definitely one reason why you might use Route 2. And I'd love to hear from another group about whether you think they made the right choice here by saying to go to Route 2. Um, let's see. Maybe Jaehoon? Jaehyun? Do you think they made the right choice by going the Route 2?
I don't think that it is right.
Don't think they should go that route? Maybe? Oh no, he's gone. That's okay. Does
Yes,
anyone else? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jaehyun.
I don't think that Route 2 can be dangerous by flooding, so it is bad to go there.
Yeah, maybe both routes there's something wrong with both routes, and so the being able to choose between them is very difficult, because you might be hurting people both ways, right? If they are impacted by the flooding, and so it's a risk. But this group 1 has decided that it's best to go by Route 2. Um, and yeah, let's go to group 4, who had that the flooding was going to begin next week instead of within an hour or two. So I'd love to hear from someone in group 4 to tell us about your decisions and why you made those decisions. Maybe Yuna or Yunjae?
It is decided that the highway is expected to be prone in congestion. We
select volunteers to lead the routes. Leaders have to be those who know well about the routes they will lead. Each volunteer should be a team leader who will navigate their team. People who are sick or weak may take the highway with the emergency team, and others who aren't take the back roads with the assigned team. And let me add some explanation about our decision. Maybe the sick person or weak person can be in emergency situation, so we decided that the emergency team and sick or weak people go to highway, that route 1, and relatively people who aren't weak or sick can walk to the route 2 more with the volunteers more comfortably. So we decided this solution. That's the end.
Yeah, thanks so much for reading that and describing your thought process behind it. I love this solution that you've come up with here, that you decided on choosing between the routes and giving the people who are sick the way out on the highway, and the people who are not, they can be a little bit more risk by taking the back roads, and they have until next week to evacuate, right? And so hopefully both groups will be fine and make it out before the next week happens. And so I like that we've taken a different approach here. So great job, group 4. This was very fun to see how we did different ideas on how to escape the flood warning, even though we had different time scales. So one was very quick and they had to evacuate now. And this one, they had a little bit more time here. Okay. So how does this help you guys see biases as a way of shortcuts, mental shortcuts? How do you think this activity used biases for shortcuts? Maybe Do-yoon, any ideas of how this activity maybe forced you to use a bias or a mental shortcut of some sort?
I think that Route 1 is well known, so people people might have bias of Route 1, that Route 1 is better. So I think this problem made it use that bias.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. That is um, a really great point there. Route 1, that well-known highway, can definitely be this idea of a bias, whether that's availability or familiarity. Familiarity, especially because it's familiar. You know that it's there. You know how it works. So seeing that anchoring bias there in play. And then another one that might come into play is how the time affects us. And so we have to make that quick decision that Myung-se talked about at the beginning of class, right? He said, a bias might come into play when we need to make a fast decision. And so for our group A's, we had 2 group A's, and they only had to be hours. They had hours here, you'll see. And so they had to make a very quick decision. And although it might be risky to send people by one route or another, they still had to make a decision. And so they had to resort to these biases of availability and anchoring. And so kind of like Myung-se said, that timing of it's a quick decision, so you resort to your biases. And so they can help you sometimes if you need to make a choice. Great. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move into our reflection poll for the day. We did not have a reflection poll last time, but sometimes we will have an end of class poll where you'll have 5 minutes to respond to this question. So I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Hello again. And I will launch this poll for you guys. And so this poll says, when do you think relying on biases is acceptable? And when might it be risky? So we just did a whole exercise on biases and when we're going to rely on them. And Do Yoon gave us a great example of how a well-known highway might be an example of a bias there. So let's continue that in this poll, and you'll have about 5 minutes to answer it. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and start a timer for you. Okay, just about 2.5 minutes left on the poll. But if we need more time, we can take a little bit more time as well. Okay. Looks like everyone answered, has finished the poll. Whoa. Did y'all hear that? That was an interesting timer ending sound. Never heard that. I've only ever heard like jarring, like jing 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 jing, that kind of sound. So looks like everyone finished the poll. So I'm gonna go ahead and end it now. And you should be able to see your poll response. And I'd love to hear two responses to the poll. So does anyone want to volunteer to talk about their poll answer? Myung-se, let's see if we can hear you. Oh, I cannot. No. Oh no. I don't know what happened. Maybe try clicking the little audio button in the bottom left corner and seeing what it's hooked up to, if it's hooked up to the right headphones. Uh, but
Can
maybe
you
we'll
hear
come
me?
back. Oh, I can hear you now. Yes. Oh no, I lost you. No. That's so weird. I heard the can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't use headphone for line now.
Ah, okay.
So
Okay.
so my wait a minute, please. Can you show me again my response because it deleted?
Let me see. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes, so I will share my response. I think it might be risky when we should consider other elements for logical and right decision, and it will be acceptable when it's important to decide something very quickly and when you should focus on the problems based on intuition, not logical thought. But I think this case will be much less than risky situation. So we should, I think it is better for us many times to uh, avoiding the relying on bias.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Trying to avoid relying on biases is definitely something we should strive to do. But you're also right in those quick decisions. It can be a little risky. And so thanks, Myung-se. That's great. Ji-young, you want to share yours as well?
Yes. I think relying on biases is effective when we are taking an exam. We have limited time when taking exams, so the biases made from what we had studied might lead us to a prompt and even accurate decision. On the other hand, biases could be risky when we think of other people. Society is a very large place, and we've only met only a part of it. Eventually, the biases we made of other people might include fallacies.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, and that word fallacies there. We haven't gone over much at all. But you're absolutely right. Those biases can introduce fallacies in the way we think about other people. So really need to take care and make sure we're not too risky with the way we view other people in the world just by viewing them through our biased lens. So getting outside of that box that we have. That's a great answer. Thank you, Gio. And Yunjae, you want to go ahead?
Um, I think when our biases are acceptable is when the effect isn't large and doesn't harm anyone, like when buying groceries. And when it's risky is when the effects are on a large scale and affects quite a lot, like when voting for someone. And um, that's much it.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when voting for someone, we want to make sure we're not being too biased. So that's a great answer. Thank you, Yunjae. Great job, guys. I loved all those answers. So thanks so much for being participatory and raising your brave hands to share out your reflections. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing your answers. And I believe that's pretty much it for today. Let's go ahead. I'm going to reshare my screen with you all so we can move to the next little ending activity for the day. Okay. So, great job today, everyone. Thanks so much for being participatory and bringing our recipe to bear today with our bravery, our participation. And I'm just really glad to see how you all are growing and getting out of your shells. So it's great. So much fun. This class about biases was fun and helpful to see how biases impact the way we solve problems and change our minds by doing things quickly. And I'd love it if someone could tell me something that they learned or summarize the class for us as a group. What did someone learn or want to summarize today's class? Anybody? Maybe we go to Seokyoon. What did you learn today in this class about biases?
I learned way to use bias to solve problem and uh, uh, and sorry,
It's okay. All is good. Take your time.
uh, I learned uh, that thing about bias.
Mm. I think you are on the right track. Your first sentence, especially on I learned how to use biases to solve problems, um, is very accurate because that is definitely what we did today in class. Did you want to add anything else? Sorry? Is
No,
that okay? Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. So great. We definitely used biases to solve problems throughout class today. Anybody else? What did you learn from class? Maybe Song Hwan?
I think we learned today that how we use biases to solve problems, and how biases affect us in different ways.
Mm, great. Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing I might add here is that we think about the middle activity with John, right? Or John, our YouTube guy, and how biases can be a little risky. We might end up failing our test if we only use our confirmation bias and only take things that we know are to be true. And so biases can be helpful and help us solve problems, but they can also be risky in making decisions. And so learning when to use them is very important. And that's pretty much class for today. So today, you'll have your first collaboratory after your little lunch break, I believe. And so you'll be applying today's ideas to some more real world scenarios. So biases to real world scenarios, just like the John scenario that we did, or the evacuation. And so you'll be talking about biases in those. And I will be in office hours for about 2 hours after your lunch break. So if you need anything, please feel free to come back there. It'll be in a Zoom link and it's on your HY on, your Hanyang on. So you should be able to access that if you need me. And I'm going to go ahead and just show you, I believe. So this is what your collaboratory will look like. And these are actually your groups for the collaboratory. So if you look here, you should be able to see who you are with. And so you'll have this page that you'll want to make a copy of online. And you will be working together on this bias in AI generated writing scenario. So ChatGPT is very out there in the world. You probably have heard of ChatGPT, I hope. And so you'll be looking at it and identifying the biases in this scenario and producing work for me to give you feedback on and how you looked at it. So you don't have to look at this right now. You'll be looking at it together today, later, as you do this in collaboratory. But if you have any questions, please come to office hours, ask your TA, ask me, anyone around you. We're all here to support you in this work and getting this work started. So this will be your first collaboratory, and it'll be a fun time together. Okay. That's pretty much it for class today. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to stay after class and I can answer them for you. Okay? I hope this was fun and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Great job, everybody, for participating and for raising your hands and talking, even though we're a little shy sometimes. So great job, everybody. Thanks so much. Bye-bye. Bye, bye-bye. And that's a wrap for our YouTube people. Thanks so much for coming. Looks like today we got done right around time. We usually leave about 10 to 15 minutes of buffer room for the session. So